Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the council meeting for our first council meeting for September. We're awfully glad to have you all here with us today, this evening. I first wanted to send regrets. Councillor Ices is sent his regrets today. He's on a vacation. And we welcome back Councillor Payne. Welcome back, Councillor Payne. It's good to see your smiling face. And with that, we have quorum, so we will open the meeting. I'd ask if you do have a cell phone, if you could please, or another electronic device, if you could please put it on silent or mute. Also for the guests that are here with us today, welcome. And I see you all have your cameras off and you're muted. And then of course, when we call on you, we're happy to have you turn those cameras on and join us. So we are live streaming, and we're also asking or telling you that this is audio and video recorded, and it shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. And for more information, you can get more information through the clerk's services. So having said that, we'll go right into open forum, and I see that the deputy clerk is telling us we have no open forum items on tonight's agenda. So we will go to the approval of the agenda, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as printed. Councillor Waters, Councillor Van Berkel, all those in favor? And that's carried. I'd next ask if there's any disclosures of interest, and seeing none at the moment, but if one becomes apparent to you through the meeting, please make note of it and we'll move forward with that. So I'm assuming we're going to have a few more. I want to welcome everybody who's watching the live stream. I'm assuming we're going to have a few more than normal because we've just got such an exciting announcement for this evening. And so I will just start with that. So tonight, I'm thrilled to share that the recruitment process of the town of Innisfil for our next Chief Administrative Officer is finally over. So before I introduce our new CAO, I want to share a bit of background on the effort that went into that recruitment process. We needed to make sure that the incumbent was a good fit, not only with council and staff, but foremost with our community, because the CAO role is so vitally important to the town. So over the past few months, a search committee made up of councillors and community members worked closely with Boyden Executive Search to locate the ideal person to join our team. And a special thank you goes out to Andrew Dumont. He was unable to join us this evening, but we want to thank him so much for making the process as painless as possible and leaving no rock unturned. So after the community and the stakeholder consultation, 49 applications and 11 interviews, the search committee made a unanimous recommendation to present Oliver Gershow to council as the preferred candidate. Council agreed that Mr. Gershow has what it will take to lead our town through the next exciting chapter, and also made a unanimous decision to appoint him to this role. Your council deeply values community input. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the many residents who contributed through either interviews or surveys to help us form a detailed candidate profile of what Innisfil was looking for in a CAO. I would also like to recognize the members of the search committee, and I'll ask them please to put their cameras on now if they would be so kind to do so. I'm not sure Barb Love was able to join us tonight. Barb Love is a longtime resident of Innisfil with a medical background and helped realize the Rizzardo Health and Wellness Center here in Innisfil. Bob Shelton, Bob's a former CAO of Newmarket, and Bob, I understand you've just received an award from the Institute of Public Administrators of Canada, so congratulations for that, and thank you for all of the help you gave us. Keisha Ann Shaw Hill. I don't see Keisha, but she was actually a former Innisfil employee, but also a practicing lawyer with her practice here in Innisfil. And Robin McAleary Downer. Robin was our Deputy Chief of Police at South Simcoe Police and is currently the Chief Aide-de-Camp for Ontario's Lieutenant Governor. So on top of those distinguished community people, we had two members of council also join the search committee along with myself. We had Councillor Bill Van Berkel and Councillor Alex Waters. What was really interesting about that is we've had Councillor Van Berkel, who's been on council for many, many terms and worked with many different CAOs here in Innisfil, and Councillor Waters, who's on his first term and worked with one CAO. So we had lots of different perspectives on the group and lots of energy, and we so much appreciate you giving your time to ensure that our town administration is in such good hands. Mr. Gershow joins us from OMERS, where he was Vice President, Employer and Stakeholder Relations, and previously Oliver worked for the province of Ontario in a variety of roles, including Director of Finance Policy at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. He worked for the Ministry of Infrastructure and Executive Coordinator for the Provincial Cabinet Office. He has a wealth of experience in municipal policy, as well as leading and inspiring large teams. He holds an Honours Bachelor of Arts from the U of T and a Master of City Planning from the University of California, Berkeley. I'm excited for Mr. Gershow to join the town of Innisfil and would like to invite him now to turn on his camera and share a few words with us. Welcome, Oliver.
Thank you so much, Your Worship, and hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure for me to be here with you tonight, and I just wanted to offer a few comments by way of introduction and really by way of thanks as well. And I'd like to start by thanking all of the members of council for putting your trust in me with this appointment. You have my commitment that I will work as hard as I can every single day in service of the community of Innisfil. And I also want to say that I'm committed to achieving a very smooth and seamless transition over the weeks ahead. And I'll be working with the members of the senior leadership team in Innisfil to accomplish just that. To the members of the Town of Innisfil team who may be watching, hi. I want to say that I'm so excited to be joining such an outstanding organization. I've already heard so many great things about the innovation, the hard work, and the sense of service to the community that this team delivers every day, and I can't wait to join you in that. So I'm looking forward to meeting each of you personally and joining you in the work that we're doing together. I'd like to say as well to any leaders of community organizations and businesses who are active in Innisfil, I'm looking forward to meeting with you as well. I'm a big believer in the importance of partnerships and how they can support a thriving community. And so I'm looking forward to working with you in the future also. And finally, to any residents of the community of Innisfil who may be watching, I am really here in service of you. I'm a big believer in the importance of public service, and I look forward to meeting with you, to hearing from you, to learning from you as well. So I'll leave it there, but Your Worship, thank you so much. I'm so excited to begin and really look forward to the transition in the weeks ahead.
Thank you so much, CAO incumbent Gershow. I can say that now, and you have to say your last name for me so I make sure that I'm saying it correctly.
You're doing it great.
Oh, good. We do look forward to having you join us officially on October the 25th. But I know you've already had many meetings with members of staff, and I know you're going to have some meetings prior to that. So I appreciate that very much, you giving us that extra effort even before you're on the clock. That's remarkable. Now, in the meantime, when we're saying hello to Mr. Gershow, we're having to extend our deep gratitude and sincere thanks to our interim CAO, Dr. George Chaperoux. Now, I know George is with us this evening. He might not be able to turn his camera on, but I insisted that we needed to embarrass him in public and make him blush, although we might not be able to see him blush. But we want to thank you for stepping in to guide the town over the past 6 months. Your leadership has been greatly appreciated. And I thank you for all that you've done for the community by filling in not only the CAO role, but you also came to our aid to fill in as the CEO of In-Services prior to this as well. With your contract expiring and ending on September the 16th, I hope you finally take some time to enjoy your retirement. I also hope, George, that you learn the word no, because you have never said it to us. Every time we've asked for your help, you've been there. When you were CAO of InPower and we asked you to work part-time at the town, you said yes. When we asked you to step out of your retirement to help fill the role at InPower, you did that. And now you helped fill the role as interim CAO. So I know that you and Valerie have some very exciting vacation plans coming up very soon, and I wish you all the best. And I hope that you finally do take some time for you and for your family. And I look forward to continuing to work with you as a member of our utility board, so we'll still get to see each other. And I would also ask, is Danny Persaud on here this evening? Yes, Danny. If you'd like to, Danny's our CEO of InPower and In-Services, and if you'd like to share a few words on your continued valuable contributions to those organizations.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very well said, and I echo the same sentiments to George. George, on behalf of InPower and In-Services, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for your leadership and dedication to supporting our utilities as chair of both boards and as stepping in as interim CEO. Over the last few months, George, you provided tremendous support in a number of key initiatives and policies to help us shape and grow our organizations. For those of you that are not aware, earlier this year, George was awarded the chair's citation by the Electricity Distributors Association, an award of very high distinction for his unwavering commitment to serving and strengthening our industry. And that just goes to George's character and what Mayor Dolan has said. George is always willing to help, even if it means coming out of retirement multiple times to help us out. He's done that, and we are truly grateful and continue to be grateful for his service. So I'll keep it nice and short and sweet. George, thank you once again for your leadership, for your mentorship, for your friendship. Wishing you some well-deserved time off. And as Mayor Dolan said, I really do hope you take it. And Oliver, congratulations on your appointment and welcome to the Innisfil family.
Thank you so much, Danny, much appreciated. Any other members of council who wish to, oh, there he is. George, do you want to share a few words with us?
Thank you very much, Your Worship, for those kind words. Thank you, Danny. It's been an incredible privilege for me to work with such an incredible team, council, staff that spend so much of their time trying to make customer service experience the best that they can. Oliver, you're joining an incredible organization. Congratulations. I look forward to working with you on future boards. Unfortunately, my contract is up, and we look forward to the future, and the future looks bright. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, George. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Oliver first on board. Welcome to Innisfil and what we have to look forward to. I think it'll be exciting. And George, I want to say a special thank you. I've known you for probably, I guess, almost 40 years. You've always been there for any questions I ever had. You were a great interim CAO. Your approach is amazing. And stay home this time when we call. Don't answer. And I look forward to you hearing about your vacation when you get back, okay? Take care and look after yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. I'll start with George as well. George, I just wanted to say that my 7 years on council, you have been such a pleasure to work with on both your positions at In Services and In Power, and as acting CAO with the town. You have always been supportive. You were an easy listener. You were great at solutions and problem solving. And it's been my honor and pleasure to have had the opportunity to have worked with you during that time. And I wish you all the best on a well-deserved vacation. And we promise not to bring you back for any position during that time. And Oliver, I just want to say I was so impressed with the dialogue that we had in the interview process. And I still look forward to the background and the strengths and all that new experience. It's going to be an exciting time for Innisfil and the transition. And I think you're a perfect fit. And I look forward to meeting you in person and having some dialogue. Thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Councillor Orsatti. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I want to welcome Oliver on board. It was a long process, and while we were interviewing you, and I'm so happy that you're here now, and that we can expose to the world that you belong to us. George, it's been a long time, my friend. I remember way back in Empower when you came on board, and in the days when council waffled a little bit whether we should sell Empower or not sell Empower. It was your foresight and convincing and your vision, quite frankly, of what Empower could be that saved it from going on the market. And to this day, I have to thank you for that. I was extremely happy when you became our interim CAO because I knew you could do the job. I never doubted that for 1 second. And this is the second time you're going to retire. I hope you stick to your guns this time. But you know what? Don't forget us. We'll always be your friends. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol and then Councillor Waters.
Worship, I don't know if I can add too much more to what Councillor Orsatti and Van Berkel have already added. George, thank you so much for all your dedication to this community for many, many years. Please enjoy your retirement. You deserve it more than anybody that I know. And I really hope, although they're joking, I hope we don't have to call you back again. But if we do, we know you'll come back and help us anyways. So enjoy your time. Oliver, welcome. We look forward to you getting into the position in October, but get some rest because we got a lot of work to do soon. So thank you both.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
Thank you. Well, George, I haven't had a long time to work with you. I was kind of looking forward to the sustainability issues initiatives that we talked about. So I will miss that opportunity, but I look forward to working with Oliver on those ones. But your amazing flexibility to go from one organization to the other and seamlessly, work with everyone to get the job done, and you've done that. Since you do have a hard time saying no, I suggest that the modern term you need to use is block us. So that way you don't even know we're making the request and you can enjoy your retirement. So all the best to you. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication to the town of Innisfil. I don't think the residents realize how important you've been to this community and this organization. So thank you very much. For Oliver, I'm so glad to have you on board. I think you are the right person for the right time for the right community. So I look forward to working with you, and I think you're going to be able to move things forward in the direction that we all hoped Innisfil would go in. So I sincerely wish you all the best, and I look forward to working with you over the coming years. So welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. And I think the key is, George, you have to make sure that cruise ship takes you out of cell range. Councillor Fowler and then Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Worship. George, I have not had the opportunity to work shoulder to shoulder with you. So for that, it's a regret, sadly, that you will leave us this early. However, whenever your name was mentioned, I can say that everyone held you in the highest respect. So the capabilities you have are known through various aspects of the town. So thank you for your service and all you've done for the community. It does not go unnoticed. It does not go unappreciated. And to follow up with Councillor Waters, I think they used to sell those things on the infomercials where, you know, the number comes in, it automatically blocks it, like the telemarketers. I think you should get one of those for the town of Innisfil. That way it doesn't go through at all. I hope you enjoy your vacation, because if anybody has earned it, my friend, it's you. Oliver, we've only spoken briefly, but I can tell right now that I'm going to thoroughly enjoy picking your brain and seeing the things that we can accomplish together and moving forward. I'm actually very excited to work with you and see what we can accomplish as a team. So welcome aboard.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to, as normal, I'm going to make this short and sweet. George, thank you so much for everything that you have done. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I wish you all the best. And like everyone else said, still say no. Yes is not in your vocabulary anymore. So wish you all the best and enjoy what you're going to be doing. And well, we may see you in our travels. So you take care. And Oliver, I welcome you as well as all the other staff and council members, and I look forward to working with you as well. And at one point, I would like to meet you in person. Seeing you in a picture on the screen isn't the same thing. So I look forward to working with you as well, and I wish you all the best. And I also want to say, Robin Downey McCleary, McCleary Downey, I'm thrilled to see you here. So thank you for all that you did, and you look great. So that's it for me, and nice to see everybody again. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. So any final words, George, before you sail off into the sunset?
No, Your Worship, I'm going to keep this short and sweet also. So thanks everybody for the kind words. This corporation of the town of Innisfil is in great hands. It's moving forward. I think that the residents of Innisfil are very lucky, and we all look forward to what's coming around the curve. So from my behalf, thank you very much, and good luck everybody, and take care, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, George, and thank you, Oliver, and thank you, Danny, for coming to say a few words. But I also would be remiss without thanking our Chief Financial Officer and Director of Corporate Services, Mike Melanishin. Mike is going to fill in the gap between George's departure when his contract expired and when Oliver joins us as our interim CAO. So thank you so much for that, Mr. Melanishin. And with that, we have a motion, and could I please have a mover and a seconder for the motion? Councillor Van Berkel, Councillor Waters, all those in favor. That is carried. It's official. Thanks, everyone. Now we'll move on to delegations, and we have two delegations this evening. The first one is from Mr. Craig Binning from Hemson Consulting, and he's going to present to us about some amendments that are needed to our development charges background study. Welcome, Mr. Binning.
Yes, good evening. Pleasure to be with council. It's been some time since I've been before you, so it's a real pleasure. Just as the presentation's getting loaded, just really what we want to do over the next 10 or 15 minutes is provide you with an update on some important changes that have been made to the growth funding tools that are available to the municipality, and talk about the development charges and a scoped amendment that we're undertaking on behalf of the town. So just on to the next slide. I think I covered off the topics. So we can go all the way to the next slide. And Fortunately, as many of you are aware, the province has been reviewing the Development Charges Act and the full range of development-related funding tools available. And we were quite concerned municipally about some of the changes that were originally proposed. I'm happy to report that in the end, effectively, the tools have been strengthened from the perspective of the municipality. And if anything, we're in a better position than we were 2 years ago. And these are the three prime funding tools that we have available to us outside of property taxes and utility rates. The Development Charges Act continues to be the cornerstone of how we fund development-related infrastructure. And as I indicated, it's been strengthened through the legislative changes. One of the most important things is that the 10% discount on a number of the general services has been removed. And I'm going to speak to that in a few minutes. The other important piece of legislation is the Parkland Dedication or Cash in Lieu, Section 42. Also, that piece of legislation has remained largely unchanged. I'll speak to a few differences in a few minutes. And then we have this introduction of this new tool called the Community Benefits Charge, which is replacing the current Section 37 provisions of the Planning Act. And once again, I've got a few slides on each of those, so I'll just move forward. On the next slide, basically, we're in a period of a 2-year transition, and that by September 17th of 2022, really you are needed to make sure that you're in conformity with a number of the changes. Fortunately for the town, there's not too much that needs to be required until that day, unless you want to consider a community benefits charge. But even if you don't implement one by that date, it doesn't prohibit you from considering it in the future. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. And then just moving on to the next slide, what I want to do is spend a few minutes with you just highlighting the Development Charges Act and some of the changes that have been made there, because that's the real key tool for how the town funds development-related infrastructure. Those of you that are unfamiliar with it or haven't had a refresher from me in a while, development charges is really the key funding tool to allow municipalities to fund what we refer to as the initial round of capital costs associated with meeting the increased needs of development. It's capital focused, the idea here is that growth should pay for growth and not place an undue burden upon existing ratepayers. On the next slide, we have one of the key changes to the Development Charges Act is that previously the legislation provided for services that were ineligible, and then basically everything else was potentially considerable under the Act. We now have a prescriptive list of services, and they're on the screen before you now. Only these services can be funded from development charges. No other services can. The good thing from the town's perspective is that all of the services that you have historically funded from development charges are on the list of eligible services, and I've highlighted those on the screen. So for the good news is we can continue forward. And as I already alluded to, there's even been some enhancements from the town's perspective. So just moving on to the next slide. One of the things that was changed through the legislation and is already in effect as of the beginning of 2020 is the point at which development charge rates are determined and the point at which they're paid. Historically, development charges have largely been determined and paid at the time of the issuance of the building permit. Change to the legislation now means that when an individual or landlord comes in with a development application, and most applications fall under this in one way or another, or rezoning, the development charge rates payable are frozen at the time of the receipt of the complete application. And then from the point at which council approves the rezoning or the development application, they have 2 years in which to pull the building permits under that provision. And they pay the development charges rates when they pull the payment, but they are the rates that were frozen. And so obviously that means, especially if you're doing an update, the development may not be paying the fully appropriate development charge rates. In addition to that, there's certain forms of development that are allowed to defer their payments over a period of time. Rental housing and certain forms of institutional development pay their development charges out over 5 years from the issuance of the first permit, or 6 installment payments. And then not-for-profit housing actually extends out over 20 years. One thing to note is you can charge interest on that, and I know there's an item in the staff report dealing with that. Sorry, we can go to the next slide now. As has been indicated, we have initiated with the town a scoped amendment to the development charges. We're keeping it very focused, and really the intention here is to take advantage of the removal of the 10% discount on a number of the general services, in particular the parks and recreation and the library services, but also municipal fleet and general government. And I'll touch on that again in a few minutes at the back end. And so just moving on to the next slide. This is just a schematic of where we're at in the process. We initiated it back in the spring, and we've been working with your staff, and I once again wanted to compliment them on all their hard work through the summer months. We're in a position now where we're getting close to calculating new draft rates, and we will be moving forward to presenting those in short order. And we are on track to release a draft amendment study, much more scope than the development charge studies that you've seen from me in the past, releasing that on or about September 24th, holding the formal statutory public meeting on October 20th, and then bringing that bylaw to council's consideration on or about November the 24th. And then just moving on to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about this new community benefits charge. Some of you have likely heard about this. It does replace Section 37 of the Planning Act, which used to allow for, if a development was coming in and requesting increased height or density, a municipality was allowed to negotiate with them for additional contributions. This tool is much more broad ranged, and if we go on to the next slide, I'll just highlight some of the key things that it does. Basically, it allows a municipality to levy a charge against certain types of development, and I'll refer to it as higher density residential development. So the building needs to be 5 or more stories and have 10 or more residential units. If it meets that test and the municipality has a bylaw in place, you can levy an additional charge, and it's capped at 4% of the land value of that individual development on the day before that permit is issued. And you can fund a full range of types of services, which is set out on my next slide. And interestingly, the types of services that can be funded are not restricted in any way, and indeed can complement what you have in the development charge study. We can't fund the same components that you're funding through your development charges, but if there's a gap, we can consider them under a CBC strategy. And some of the things that are looking at are urban parks, active transportation, parking, streetscaping, and other types of community benefits. There are a very similar set of what we refer to as nexus tests that are in the Development Charges Act. Basically, we have to show that what we're funding is related to development and related to the development that would be funded from this. Just moving on to the next slide. And the Act requires us to have a strategy, which is another term for a background study. And in many respects, it'll look somewhat similar to a development charge background study, but it's not nearly as prescriptive and it won't have as much detail in it, but we need to walk through a series of different tests to consider them. Just to let you know, we're in the initial stages of working with several GTA municipalities, and you're likely to see some of the first round of strategies come out in the fall, or perhaps Q1 of next year. So we're sort of leading edge in terms of interpreting and understanding the legislation. Just on to the next slide. The other area, the other funding tool is the Planning Act and the Parkland dedication under Section 42 and 51. As I'm sure members of council are aware, when the development comes forward, you are able to collect parkland, either dedication of land or accept cash in lieu where there isn't sufficient land. And there's a concept called the alternative rate under the Planning Act that allows you to lever additional monies under certain types of development as long as you have a bylaw in place, and it's an enhanced land contribution and also different cash in lieu policies. That's the CIL short form. And fortunately, those rules have not changed under the Planning Act. Originally, we thought it was going to be much more scoped and even potentially removed, but it stays there in place. So on to the next slide. So the existing provisions, the standard 2% of commercial and industrial land, 5% of residential, remain in place. And if that's all that you want to do, you actually don't need to make any changes. If the municipality wants to impose one of the alternative rates, then you do need to implement a bylaw, and it has to be in place prior to that expiry of September of next year. It's also important to note that this bylaw now can be appealed to what is now referred to as the OLT, the former OMB, as can the development charges bylaw and the CBC bylaw. So there's strengthened need to make sure that we're doing all of these things correctly. And then just on to my next slide. And actually, I think I'm passing it on to Audrey just to speak to the next steps in the process here.
Yes, thank you. We thought, it would be helpful for us to give council a very high level overview of the work that related to development charges and the CBC strategy that we'll be working on over the next couple of years. As identified already in the staff report and mentioned by Craig, we're going to be looking for council approval of the amended development charges background study and DC bylaw related to the removal of the 10% discount. As well, staff are currently working on and will be working on updating various master plans, completing master plans and studies. And as you may know, those master plans and studies are an integral and important piece used in building the development charges background study. That is where, staff in building the development charges background study go to these council approved master plans and studies in building those reports, those strategies. Q1 of 2022, we're looking to award, the plan is to award the RFP for the development and updating of the development charges background study, CBC strategy, and updating of the cash in lieu of parkland bylaw. And as you know, it's a fairly extensive process, with the new CBC strategy as well. A few more steps are, going to be involved in this process. And so we're looking to, finally in June of 2023, the hope is that we'll be seeking council's approval for those various bylaws. And as you know, through that extensive process, there's extensive consultation with stakeholders, the development community, and council before we actually do get to that June 2023 date. As a reminder, our current DC bylaw does expire in September of 2023. And so the hope is we'll have that passed in place well before our current bylaw expires. And so that is the final slide. And I think now there's an opportunity for council to ask questions related to any of those technical pieces that Craig spoke to you about this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Binning and Ms. Webb, for that presentation. And I'll go to council, members of council, if they have any questions. Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Binning, I'm just wondering, when I was reading this report and the recommendations that staff have for council, the one concern that I have is with not-for-profit housing. And, the need to provide affordable housing, everybody is asking for that. So in Innisfil, and looking at the interest rates of prime plus 3%. And I'm just wondering, I was communicating just sort of earlier with our finance department, but I'm just wondering, are you aware of other municipalities for their interest rates, the changes that they're applying for not-for-profit affordable housing projects? Because it seems like such a high rate when we're trying to encourage that, to bring that to our community.
Mr. Binning?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. It's a very good question, and obviously this whole interest rate policy is new, and municipalities are evolving in the way that they look at that. And as Ms. Webb and I have discussed, there are some municipalities that have been examining that very point and implementing a different type of interest rate with respect to certain types of built form, not for profit, and maybe even some of the rental opportunities. we would be pleased to work together with staff and do a best practices survey on that and bring that back to council either at or before the public meeting for your consideration.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Arsetti?
Thank you. Then I'm just wondering, because the recommendations that are, sorry, I'm just going to go before us in here in this report are to approve the development charges attached in the report that have no mention of flexibility or coming back to council other than the prime +3 or prime +3 +2. So, you know, we're looking at prime +5% or so I would just like before for myself, instead of, you know, allowing this, these rates to look at some form of an amendment or some phrasing where yourself and staff would look at this and come back to council with a recommendation for the not-for-profit affordable housing part of this. And I'm just wondering if that's doable and how that would impact the work that you're doing now.
Mr. Melanesian?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Arsetti. Great question, Councillor. The policy is new to us, and we sort of mirrored as we were drafting it what the county is looking at, what the county is doing, following their process and procedures, mostly for consistency's sake. Agreed, it seems a bit high for the strategic direction the council wants to take for not-for-profit and affordable housing. On that note, the county is revisiting that policy and anticipate mirroring it, as well as through Hampson and Mr. Benning, that we are going to explore different municipalities to see what they do as a comparator and come up with the best recommendation for council. So more than happy to entertain an adjustment to the recommendation in the staff report coming forward. Yeah, more than welcome, and working with Mr. Benning to accomplish that. So thank you for the input.
Councillor Van Berkel?
Thank you, Your Worship. The non-for-profit, when they're built, how long do they last? Like 5 years, 10 years before the owner of the building, let's say, can sell it at a profit?
I believe the one we have now is 20, but I defer to anyone who can answer that question. Is Ms. Webb or Mr. Deloitte?
It's usually 20 years, Your Worship.
And is that written in stone, or is 20 years?
It's in the funding contract. So they have to deliver the goods, build the building, and have it occupied with social housing or whatever the arrangement is, and that's prescribed for 20 years.
Thank you, because my worry would be that if, you know, you drop to 5% or to 3%, whatever, and after a certain amount of time they can sell it, they will have made this 3 or 5% over the years, and, you know, which we didn't get, and make a large profit as soon as the period is over.
Thank you, Councillor. And other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Just a quick question. In one of the slides, I just quickly saw something that said something about density tool dropped. And so I was looking for an explanation of what that was. And I may have even wrote it down wrong. So pardon me if I'm incorrect in that, but it was on the slide. It was very, very quick. So I just would like an explanation of what that was.
Mr. Benning?
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you to the councillor. Yes, I did move through that fairly quickly. The current Section 37 of the Planning Act allows a municipality that if a developer or landowner comes in and asks for increased height or density on their site, and council approves it, they can, as part of that approval, request that the developer pay additional monies for community benefits or provide additional community benefits. It's most frequently used here in the city of Toronto and in some GTA municipalities. And for example, if someone's got a site that's maybe zoned for 5 stories and they want to build 15, the upzoning under section 38.7 allows you to collect monies. The CVC is intended to replace that and make it a more transparent and equitable playing field. Hopefully that provides some additional insights.
Thank you. Yeah, because at Friday Harper, they did go from 4 to 6. And so I just wanted to make sure what impact that would have on a developer changing their minds in terms of the density for their development. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Before we go to a second round, I'm just going to take a few minutes and say that really glad to see the 10% dropped. We've always held the philosophy that growth should pay for growth. So it's wonderful to see that fall off the table. The part about the freezing the charges, so that would be after a complete application is received. So that's just about making sure that a complete application is really a complete application, but I think we're pretty good at that. And then my final comment would be about, Councillor Van Berkel and I sit on the Municipal Services Corporation, and lately we've been having some going out to tender for things, large infrastructure projects that are coming in like hugely above what we anticipated them to come in, hugely above budget. I don't know if it's just post-COVID or whether that will, settle, but how does that find its way into the DC development charge background? I know this is a little off what we're talking about today, but I know both Councillor Van Berkel and I raised that at our in-services meeting.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd be pleased to respond. I mean, it's been a critical time over the last 2 years, especially seeing the sharp increase in construction costs, especially for your engineered services like roads and the sewer and the water. And I know that the mayor was at County Council when I was presenting on the increased pressure on the county's development charge rates, largely related to the roads program. We had some discussions about that internally. It was deemed that as you move forward and do your master servicing plans and update all of those, as well as the ongoing MCR process, that it would make most sense to do those in a collective manner and capture that. And that's why Ms. Webb in presenting was indicating that you would likely initiate a more comprehensive development charge update process initiating next year when those various fundamental and important studies are complete and ready to move forward. And we can capture those increased costs at that time through the rate setting exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Benning. Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. I just clarification because this is a delegation, but it has recommendations before us from the staff report that go with this because it's nowhere else in the agenda that we're going to pull the item. So I'm just wondering because it does, just clarification, because it does say that the charge interest policy attached to this report be approved, whereas I still would like that, looking at that staff be directed to investigate possible, DC policy bylaw options that help achieve council's mandate of promoting affordable housing. So staff would look at that possibly with Mr. Benning, Hampson Consulting, check what the county council is doing with the affordable housing and come back to us rather than us saying we agreed to the interest rates in here, carte blanche for all situations. So I just feel that there needs to be an amendment. Otherwise, we're agreeing to the charges in the report. I would like some information back to council on the affordable housing.
So I wondered, Councillor, if we could amend it to say be approved in principle, and then add your phrase that you wanted at the end that more investigation be done. And I'd ask the deputy clerk to wordsmith that. And if that's an amendment, then we'll have to vote on the amendment. and then go back to the motion. So there's the, but the other part of the amendment would be to change it to be approved in principle versus be approved. Ms. Toma?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would suggest that what we do is vote on the amendment and then go back to the main motion where that could be a friendly amendment to add that wording in principle.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor and it's moved by Councillor Orsatti. Do you have a seconder, Councillor?
I did. I had Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you. Questions or comments on the amendment? So I think, you know, happy to look at options. I think it could get a little complicated if we're doing one thing and the county's doing something else, but maybe the county will move in this direction as well. And then the only other comment I'd like to make is if the development charges are paid up front, there's no interest. This is just the new option of allowing certain developments to defer paying their development charges. So that, you know, there'd be no interest charges unless they chose that route. And then the other comment I would have is I'd want to look at it holistically, like what other incentives is the county providing, for instance, as far as to attract affordable housing and put the whole package together. Deputy Mayor Davidson?
Thank you. I'd like to ask Councillor Orsatti if she would, in your affordable housing, the last two words, would you put affordable/attainable housing? Because they have two different meanings, yet they both mean the same and can be construed differently. Attainable housing I see is for the next generation, which we talked about when we were talking about the orbit and having a program where the developer, the municipality, the county work together and providing attainable housing for those who are working, not making that $200,000 a year salary where prices for the units would be according to their income. Would you be open to using that word as well, attainable/affordable?
Just before we go there, Deputy Mayor, I'm going to ask Mr. Binning if that housing would be eligible for the DC or the credit DC deferral.
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you, the extended deferral, the 20 years is for not for profit housing, which is fairly clearly defined in the legislation. If you're going to extend it into something that's more attainable, that would obviously require additional work and it can be difficult to define and quantify that. But the deferrals itself relates to the not-for-profit housing only.
I appreciate that, Your Worship. It's good to know. I want to look at all options on the table to make it easier for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. But that does raise a question. Do we need to change the amendment to say promoting not-for-profit housing versus affordable housing?
I'm comfortable with that.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Go ahead, Councillor, sorry.
Sorry, and the not-for-profit referral is mentioned quite often in the report itself, as opposed to the phrase affordable, but that's what it is. Not-for-profit is affordable housing, so.
So whoever in the clerks is typing, if we could say mandate for promoting not-for-profit housing and take out affordable and attainable. Okay. Do we have any other comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And then back to the motion as amended. And there is the friendly amendment to include the word in principle on item 3. And mover and a seconder. Councillor Fowler and Deputy Mayor Davidson. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Benning, for being here with us and making the wonderful world of development charges understandable.
My pleasure. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Okay, so we have our second delegation now. Our second delegation is Mr. Paul McGuckin. And Mr. McGuckin, I think your name might be spelt wrong on the sheet. Oh, no, that's right. That's correct. Okay. And Mr. McGuckin, if you want to turn on your camera now, and I understand you have a presentation. This is a timed item, so we have 10 minutes for this item, and I'm going to ask the Deputy Clerk to time that. And if you could, Madam Deputy Clerk, if at 9 minutes, 30 seconds, you could put your video on so Mr. McGuckin will know it's time to wrap up. And then we'll have time for questions or comments from council. Whenever you're ready, Mr. McGuckin.
Yes, Mayor, and thank you. Good evening. I would like to just ask if what I just heard was a delegation. That actually went on longer than 10 minutes, but I'll stick to my 10 minutes. I've practiced the timing and I'll do my best to keep it short. Good evening, Mayor Dolan, members of council, and anybody else who is watching in tonight. My name is Paul McGuckin. I live at 1244 Shore Acres Drive. I'm a 7-year resident of town and a longtime attendee of the town with family living here for well over 20 years. This evening, I'd like to talk to you about the Shore Acres dock launch and the impact on the Guildford community and patrons also of Contiki Marina, which I also am a patron. Next slide, please. The purpose of my being here is really to express concern coming from the installation and subsequent use of the dock. I'd like to provide members of council today with some visual evidence backing up what I'm suggesting is going on down there, and to make aware of some of the attempts I've made, maybe incorrectly, to get things resolved. But I have tried. And then I'd like to also understand how the decision to leave the dock open to the general public at large while shutting off the rest of the town's docks, during the last 18 months, how that could even make any sense, especially given, some of the lessons taken or that are pointed out by the Innisfil Beach Ad Hoc Committee, which are really also identifying some of the same issues that we've been facing down here at Shore Acres Drive. Next slide, please. What really got me going, if you could hit it one more time, what really got me going was a fireworks display that we were presented with at 2 o'clock in the morning on August the 8th. I was at the marina sleeping overnight. There were many other families, including 3 families immediately in the area from Guildford, where fireworks were being shot from the dock directly into the boats, not in the area of the boats, but in and at the boats. There was a gentleman across the street, immediately across the street from the dock. It got up at 2 in the morning, went out to approach the group, had to leave out of fear of safety. What we did was we did send an email to the mayor and also to the management of Contiki Marina, thinking that was let's go to the top from both organizations advising what's gone on. And we got some varied responses that I really didn't think at the time were appropriate given the consequences or potential for serious consequences. But regardless, here I am today. May I have the next slide, please? And a couple of clicks on that, or one click on that. Thank you. This is a picture now of just off the Shore Acres dock. There's 2 boats in the picture, and they've been hovering off the dock for 45 minutes. And why is that? If I can have the next slide, please. The reason is that the town dock was being used as a home base for watercraft rental operators and boat tour operators. What did the citizens face? Basically, dangerous operation was going on from 8 in the morning till the evening of watercraft by unskilled operators. They were given a temporary day permit boating license and allowed to ride the lakes. Boaters couldn't get out of the lake, off the lake, into the water, because of the general mayhem that was being created that day at the lake. When we went over to ask the people, one of the people that was hovering in the picture was from the marina. We'd noticed they were there for so long. We went to ask the group to please let them in. We're accused of being racist. There's a picture that the town clerk and I discussed today has been removed from this presentation, but essentially a middle finger salute was given. Violent threats were given, resulting in 911 being called. That's what everybody's telling us to do, call the police. We did. Took over an hour to respond. That day, there were two calls made by citizens to bylaw officers that I'm aware of, and one made by the Innisfil dock supervisor, of which only 2 times out of the 3 there was somebody showed up. Rental customers of this operator had been guided to use the facilities at the Contiki Marina. Park there, you meet on the dock, use the bathrooms, wander through, carry on. So I sent letters to the mayor, Councillor Nicol, Contiki Marina management, including the police report, 911 call number, photos, video, a copy of the rental company's phone number and their Facebook homepage. So what happened next, if I may have the next slide? I went to the marina the next day and spoke directly with the just resigned or retired Ryan Stoville, who was the GM of the Contiki Marina and Lefroy Harbor Marinas. I sat in his office, gave him the information. He called the operator, went on her spiel about, yeah, we rented a Contiki Marina, you park there, you come out to the dock, and away you go. So Ryan made it very clear that that's not appropriate. I received an email, or I think a call or a text or something from the mayor advising that they acknowledging my call and were investigating. If I can have a click on that, 2 clicks, please. What happened next? 2 weeks later, they're back in action. They're right back in action, carrying on. You know, all day long they were operating again. And then that evening, 8 men were, this is the exact day the signs got posted saying time limits and so on. 8 men were sitting in the dock that evening, all evening, fishing. So I sent another email to the councillor, to the mayor, advising the activity resumed, and was advised customer service would be in contact with bylaw. May I have the next slide, please? And one more. And I could play this video, but I won't play this video at a time. But what this does show is a group of jet skiers coming in off the water. They've been there, again, all day long. To the left of this picture is the channel, the marked channel coming in and out of the marina. Essentially, they were very haphazard in their way. And if you actually played this video, you'd see one of the jet skis crashing into the town dock. This has been going on. They jumped off it as it was running, and they just abandoned it as it hit the dock. This happened all day long. May I have the next slide, please?
The sound of them spinning the.
If you could click on the middle picture, this is an example of, and I don't know if you have audio here, but this is just an example of what we see daily at the end of the street. This is a car trying to pull out a boat. It's underpowered.
Here, listen to this.
Wheels are spinning. It's tearing up the dock. This happens all the time. Most of the time, the vehicles are undersized for the size of the boats, and we've seen them up to and over 30 feet be launched from the sort of municipal dock. May I have the next slide, please? Just some other examples for your vision. You know, the picture on the top left is a lady that came in to the Contiki Marina to use the beach with her daughter. She had been at the Innisfil Beach Park that day and had to leave because of general conditions weren't acceptable to her, in her mind, overcrowding. She moved to the Guildford Beach Park, which is the middle picture. Again, there were 25 people. You can see the garbage. I took these pictures the same day. The garbage was overflown, overrun. On the right-hand side, there's a picture of a trailer parked and abandoned immediately in front of the no parking sign. This is the stuff that happens all day long. This trailer is parked in an area where people are supposed to walk. Every day, there's people parked on both sides of this road, forcing pedestrians out into the street. Bottom pictures are showing families just coming into the marina, wandering. Why is this happening? Folks, one of the things identified in the ad hoc committee for Innisfil Beach was that the beach was a pinch point. Well, the end of the road here at Shore Acres Drive, especially during COVID when it's the only place around, certainly was a pinch point. Overwhelming traffic and people coming down to Contiki and in that general area. I can tell you, Contiki added security. They fixed the gate. They did their best to try to keep people from coming in, but you certainly can't prevent people from firing rockets into the marina in the evening. I mean, that's the docks there. If it wasn't there, I don't know that it would happen. May I please have the next slide? It's not just happened this year, folks. Last year, I also said, and I started my inquiries into the inquiry at Innisfil.ca, concerned with similar issues to what we're still seeing today. So over years gone by, and in my opinion, not a whole lot has been done to make a benefit or make an impact. There's been many emails, phone calls being made. Contiki management's been aware. I've kept everybody in the loop. I've gone out to residents, I've gone out to patrons to get their opinions. I feel very comfortable saying that this is an ongoing concern. May I have the next slide, please. Just some closing pictures and thoughts for you. So the picture on the left, 16 days after I contacted the town initially, this picture was taken 16 days after the fireworks were still, the garbage was still sitting there. I hate to tell you this, but there was another picture earlier. There's still fireworks garbage. I was there this afternoon before I came to this meeting. I will go back down tonight and remove it because I'm going to make my point. But 30 days have gone by and the garbage is still there from the fireworks that were being shot. I mean, that's just not acceptable. The bottom pictures, there's an actual motorcycle riding onto and off of the dock, which I don't understand how that helps anybody, but this is how the town's assets are being used at night when everybody thinks everything's good. And is it just happening in Shore Acres Drive, folks? Unfortunately, I don't think it is. You know, there's a lot of posts in public media that I've seen, Alcona chats connecting with Guildford, people expressing their concerns over how the docks are being managed. May I have the next slide, please? A couple clicks probably get you through. I was just trying to highlight the pictures to see them, but if you click again. Thank you. So in conclusion, I've lived here a long time and I know that the end of Shore Acres was used for a long time as a makeshift launch, seldom presenting issues to the town. People could sit at the lake, swim, enjoy the sights without creating any disruption to the locals or the marina. But since the dock's been installed, that's not the case anymore. The dock and installation of the public dock, at least in my opinion, has been of no benefit to the residents of the town or the local Guildford community. And if it has, I challenge anybody here to tell me how that has been. I care to be enlightened. I believe the town's proven over 2 years of being incapable of ensuring safe operation of this facility at all hours of the day. And folks, it's used all hours of the day. And I wonder how many more episodes or what level of seriousness of episode is going to happen before someone really stands up and does something about it. 911 municipal enforcement, that's what we're being told to do and use. It's not working. If it takes an hour for 911 to show up, that's a problem, okay? Guildford residents, we already have a hard enough time in the wintertime coping with ice fishing season. We're overrun at ice fishing season. The dock has made supporting Innisfil tourism a full-time job for us. And it's not our responsibility to monitor assets or get involved when things aren't being done correctly. But I can also tell you, we're going to be the ones that have to jump to help somebody if there's an emergency and we can't get town emergency services support in a timely manner. I also believe that dock is unfair to the residents of Shore Acre, which I live on Shore Acre. There's many streets that end at the water in this town and not all of them have docks. So what I had 7 years ago when I moved in was access to the water down the street. That was taken away from me with zero input and all this backlog. And I believe that installing and maintaining a public dock requires more than the minimal supervision it's gotten now. Supervisors are regularly seen sitting there for long stretches on their cell phones, oblivious to what's happening around them. The day that those people were operating the dock all day, I asked the person that was there the next day, they had no idea. They didn't know that every hour, 8 new people came in and got on Sea-Doos. This is all day long that's been on. So I think there's a little bit more than minimum supervision needs to be done to control traffic in and out of the water, traffic on the street, monitor time in the docks, and certainly to help stranded boaters. And there are stranded boaters that come to that dock when they have trouble. If I may have the last slide, please. And it's some recommendations. I don't want to just come up here and squawk, folks. I certainly got input from the town and listened, and I do care about what happens. It's not about a knot in my backyard. It's how do we do this? I do think the town needs a safe community-focused dock plan, and that should include criteria and standards over what proper supervision of a dock means. Putting a toilet in by the water and having a student sitting in a car on their cell phone is not supervision by any standard. I believe there needs to be hourly inspections for police and bylaw officers and sanitation. We can't go a month with garbage at the end of the road. We just can't have that. I believe there should be size limits imposed on the various end of road facilities. Anything you want in the Innisfil Beach Park, you've got the facilities. These little town docks, we don't have them. I think we could consider limiting the facility to only residents of Innisfil and improve signage and directions for people to Innisfil Beach Park for non-resident public boat launching. I've started to see no parking signs around here, but I can just see, I think right up to the train tracks from the lake is where that should be protected, and encourage people to use the community park or the town parking that you've got there and earn some revenue and keep everybody off of our streets and away from our houses. And I think it's also important to change the dock usage to allow the use of the dock for kids or adults accompanied by kids to swim and fish from the dock. It's a dock, it's on the water. Kids are going to want to go and swim. It was what was happening before. I also believe the town should consider a bylaw whereby only holders of a valid boat operator's license acquired by taking a boat operator's course and exam are allowed to use public town facilities. Holders of a single day permit, you've been there 10 minutes and you signed up and you got the keys and away you go. That's not any proof of competence, and you can go down there every single day and see it. And then lastly, I'd really like to encourage the town to consider picking a single location and get your dock plan right before opening up multiple locations and continuing to expose residents to what we're being exposed to today. I think 2 years is enough. I think, having fireworks launched at boats at 2 a.m. is enough. I think driving vehicles onto the dock is enough. So can we please try to do something to get this all under control? I think your ad hoc committee's got some good points, making some good points. Why don't you practice, get it nailed down, and then carry on. I go to Aurelia, I go to Barrie, I see how municipal docks can run. I think it's important for the town to have one, but I think it needs to be run right. And until it's capable of running right, shut it down.
Thank you, Mr. McGuckin. Appreciate your delegation, and would ask members of council if they have any questions or comments. Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. McGuckin, for your presentation.
Welcome, Rob.
A few points that Mr. McGuckin has made should be of interest to council to reflect upon. Firstly, for me, this pandemic has added stress and strain to so many people, so many of our residents. But I don't believe that any of our residents should take it upon themselves to get into confrontations with people using a public boat launch. As noted on page 3 of the presentation, Kentucky did state that this is taking up too much of their time, and they suggested to just enjoy the summer. Although it was noted that there were discussions on social media, the only log concern that I am aware of, and in fact, the overwhelming majority of our residents have asked for more access to the lake. We have to consider that this is a public launch next to a commercial property and just down the street from a public beach. Realistically, we cannot deny someone access based on where they live. So it would have to be either open to all of us or none of us. I know the majority of the launch is from our own residents, and I purposely monitored our data from the EOC meetings, which reported that only 6 to 8% of all launches were from non-residents, so that in the past 2 years. The rest of our residents would likely revolt if we considered closing this access. Honestly, the Shore Acres parking lot was full last weekend, and every truck and trailer that I checked had a resident tag displayed. The people using the launch are our neighbors. Usually good planning looks for good friction points to help people interact. But as part of the presentation tonight and the recommendations, fishing lines and out drives are not good combination. Swimmers near propellers are even worse. I think council would be negligent to consider fishing and swimming at any boat launch. I read about limiting boat sizes or heard about limiting boat sizes, but that occurs with the natural lake levels. I don't think we can discriminate on otherwise. And I personally pulled out my 35-foot boat there last week, and it's likely too shallow to do so now. As for licenses, there are lots of new boaters this year and last year that I've noticed, and quite a few in Kentucky Marina that I've witnessed could really use a refresher to driving as well. We have greatly improved the area, providing a pedestrian-only access at Guilford Road for the beach, while enhancing the Shore Acres launch to keep these separate and used as they have been for decades to access the lake. To my knowledge, the issue with any rental operations using the dock has been addressed. And honestly, we live in a recreational community, and we need to continue to provide our residents more access and amenities to enjoy it, because that's why we all live here in the first place. I'm not sure that this request or the recommendations are necessarily reasonable or realistic. And this is the right place for us to get it right. So if there's some tweaks that may be done at this dock, let's do that. But I think that we've got things going in the right direction for our rest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Councillor Sadi?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I want to thank you, Mr. McGuckin, from doing your presentation this evening. It's never easy, and I know there's a great deal of frustration throughout our community with fireworks happening. People, you're speaking about people with boats that don't seem to how to know to launch them and bring them back in. We've seen that many times, as well as at Innisfil Beach Park. And the same with people purchasing ATVs and not knowing how to use them or where to use them. I think the pandemic has created a real boiling pot, unfortunately, with sometimes our own, visitors or frustration and courtesy. We need more courtesy and respect of our residents and the use, and to work together as a community. And I know it's very frustrating. The Innisfil Beach Park Committee was assigned to look after Innisfil Beach Park only. So we make decisions on that park alone. But I know that there's many issues and concerns throughout all the lake access points in Innisfil as well as that. But I want to thank you for your time and for sharing your concern with council.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Worship. In listening to this situation tonight, is there not, we could take this and put it before our operations department, and don't we have a policy that we're working on for land and lakes that we're hoping to bring back to council in the new year? So rather than just try and make a decision on this tonight, there seems to be a lot of issues here that need attention, and it's happened all around the lake. Every municipality's had their issues, as you've spoken about very clearly over the last summer with COVID. So I would like to see if council would like to prefer that we send this to operations, and as the land and lakes policy moves forward, maybe we can see what we can implement, take the comments from the Innisfil Beach Ad Hoc Committee and work on it collectively to find a solution. Would council be in favor of that tonight?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms. Bowman, Director Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I'd just like to add a couple of comments. One, to echo the Deputy Mayor's remarks there. We are undertaking the Land and Lake Plan, otherwise known as the Parks and Rec Master Plan. I would advise for Mr. McGuckin and any other members of the public who have concerns about any of our lake access points, that they use that opportunity to connect and share their thoughts. And council will ultimately be presented with a very comprehensive review and recommendations coming out of that process. Councillor Nicol commented about the usage this year with our launch, and I certainly agree with those metrics. Indeed, we have seen, by and large, it is our very own residents that use that space. And as your operations team, we are always looking to check and adjust how we manage that space as well as others. And we have a solid working relationship with Kontiki Marine and continue to work with them, both as we did going into this year to make adjustments from previous. We will do so again this fall. So we will look at the operations. We will look, including the comments from Mr. McGuckin and other customer service cases that may be there to look at and see what we might improve for our operations for next year. So please rest assured that your operations team will be doing that over this winter in preparation for next season. Thanks.
May I ask a question?
Thank you. Just in a moment, if we're just gonna, and then we'll let you answer Mr. McGuckin. So Director Deloy, did I see your camera? Did you wanted to add to that?
Yeah. Yes. I just wanted to inform council that that whole business with a pop-up marina where somebody just occupied a public space for a commercial business, that kind of squatter kind of business is just not tolerated. We were on it right away. It's contrary to the municipal licensing. And I agree with everything else that Ms. Bowman had said. We can certainly keep an eye on the waste management and some of the other use pieces. There is a lot of pressure on York Region forests and public spaces during COVID. Everybody's seeing it. And You know, in the future, we hope some of that will dissipate, but a lot of it's local traffic, which is people wanting to access the lake. So again, I just reiterate, there's a survey out now for the Land and Lakes study, and encourage all residents to engage in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. You're on mute, Councillor.
Okay, here we go. It's been a while. I just have a question. Where there's docks going into the lakes, are there signs that say no swimming? And if there's not, perhaps maybe we should think about that for the safety of the children and people wanting to swim, that they should swim at the beaches and not swim at the docks where there's going to be boats. And I would say that's a safety issue. So I'm not really sure. I haven't been to that dock, so I don't know if there's signage.
There is, Councillor. There is signage, and then there's a swimming beach just a little bit to the south.
Okay, to the swimming, at the swimming beach, is there also a sign saying no watercrafts allowed at this area? I think it has to be specified, because it seems like people are just sort of going all over the place. So, you know, if this is a safety issue, then I think signs should be there. And then if they are there, there should be pictures taken and get the license number, and they can be ticketed or whatever they have to do. But I think signage is an important thing. And if hopefully they'll read the signs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Other questions or comments from members of council? So I'm going to just make a couple of comments. First of all, we did, if you remember, Mr. McGuckin, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, that early spring, we did chain off that boat launch. It lasted maybe 2 hours before somebody cut the chain. And I can't tell you the phone calls that I got from residents that wanted, the hardcore fishermen that wanted to get out there in the early spring, and we had that thing chained off, and it caused us quite a consternation. The problem we have is it's easy. We don't have the luxury of just dealing one-off with one lake access. Because if we do, we're going to have the other 46, because there is conflict at every single lake access. There is conflict. We tried to stop people from launching boats up on Big Bay Point on the south side, and again caused an uproar in the area. So every single lake access has conflicts for one reason or the other. And so we have to deal with them in treat everybody fairly, because if we don't, we're going to say, how come you did it for that and not for me? There's several that are boat launches that are unofficial boat launches. There's probably 6 or 7 of them that are used as boat launches, and they're not proper boat launches. And then there's other with conflicts with certainly fireworks and certainly people trespassing and so on. So I think the land and lake policy, because that's dealing with the entire problem and not just this one-off problem, is the proper place for your comments and to try to come up with solutions. The fireworks, we hear about it constantly. The garbage, we hear about it constantly. We do need to do a better job on that. And we need to, when I'm asking you, when you call me or email me and telling me you're in fear for your safety, of course I'm going to tell you to call the police. I don't know who else I would tell you to call, but in most cases, if it's just somebody wandering on the dock and it's not an intimate immediate safety concern, my comment to you would be not to call 911, but to call the non-emergency number of the police department, and save 911 for emergencies. And then finally, my comment would be to let bylaw and police deal with people. And as Councillor Nichols said, you know, be careful of your own safety and try not to be the dock police. Let the town staff take care of that item. Yeah, and I think that's all I had. Oh, you mentioned the berry. I don't know, like I've never seen anybody at the Barrie, a supervisor or somebody from the city of Barrie watching that dock and watching boats come in and out. I don't know of any other any other dock that does that. And certainly in Innisfil, the only dock that we provide supervision, and that is on weekends and holidays, is the Shore Acres dock. Mr. McGuckin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Several comments that I just want to have, I'd like to understand. I heard the comment just now, fairly. If you want to treat everybody fairly, then maybe someone can explain how fair it was to leave Shore Acres dock open while every other dock was closed to everybody outside of Guildford. I don't think that was very fair to the town of Guildford. I heard the comment that all kinds of fishermen called in and were concerned. I guess my question would be, was because every other dock had been closed and they couldn't get in, and Shore Acres was the only one open. The dock is used a lot more than just the hours that the people are there managing it. So those chains came off, Mayor. They came off every night, and those docks were used all night long and continued to be used all night long, well past the hours that the staff were working. So you know, I questioned some of those comments. The comment that Councillor Nichol made, that the users, somewhere you're getting some data saying that the users of the dock are only residents. I'd like to see that evidence because I don't agree with that. I'm there. I live on the street and I'm there because I'm at my boat. I'm there probably 362 out of 365 days a year. I know there's a lot of people coming in that aren't parking in the town. You know, if you're using the tickets that they're getting as your evidence, I'm saying that's part of the story. The rest of the story is being there and seeing it. And we're seeing people coming in from all over at all hours of the day that aren't. You know, if you're parked on the road, you're not getting a ticket. How can you manage that and monitor that traffic as an influence? Then I heard the comment about Kontiki marina boat operators need some instructions. I think that goes all up and down anybody that uses the channel, and I've seen, you know, all kinds of examples of that from people using that channel, not just Kontiki marina patrons that don't know how to drive a boat or not using things fairly. So I think that's a fair comment. But I just want it to be known that I think we're letting the town down. I think, you know, if you want to use your evidence I'd like to know how many people have called, you know, and what kind of, you know, I can, for every person that's complaining that the dock's open or closed, I get 10 people that say they're complaining because it's open. And we can go back and forth. I just think it comes down to having a proper plan. I go back to fair. If it's not good enough for the town of Innisfil dock, why would you have it here? And if you're going to leave the town of Innisfil dock closed, why wouldn't you shut here? Let's talk about fair and what's good for everybody. There was no benefit to the community of Guildford. But thank you very much for my time. I'll take no more time from everybody.
Thank you, Mr. McGuckin, and
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. And we offer our land and lake policy as a good vehicle to have this discussion. So we have a motion to receive the delegation, that it be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Nichol and Deputy Mayor Davidson, all those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everyone. So the next item on the agenda is item number 7, which is County Council, municipal associations, and other boards. Any updates that you can provide to members? Deputy Mayor Davidson, did you have a county update?
Just the situation we're dealing with recently is the garbage bins, new garbage bins being delivered to people's houses. It's not starting, I think, till November 1st. That those will be in the automated system. So be patient with us. We know it's not a solution for everybody, but the mayor and I are working our best. We can come up with, and it may take some time, but I know the county council staff are also working on the individual situation. So we'll take it from there. But just let you know, I haven't received my bins yet. Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have seen some around town, but
I got 2 sets. I got yours too.
all right, Councillor Savvy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I think it's, the time that everybody needs a smile. So I want to give a library update that from September 13th to 19th, if you could please go to the Tim Hortons in Cookstown and purchase your smile cookie. You can keep it for yourself or give a smile to somebody else, but a big portion of those proceeds are all donated back to the library. So it's very important. Also, the Lakeshore branch of the library has expanded their hours. They're now open beginning this week, Tuesday to Thursday. They're open till 8 p.m. and they remain open Friday and Saturday till 5. They're also delighted to return to in-person programming with this next wave and with capacity limits. So that allows outdoor story times, indoor preschool and after school programs. And since it's back to school week, just to let you know that the library has a Brain Fuse Help Now, which is a digital resource that it offers personalized homework help in core subjects, and live online tutoring is available between 2 and 11. So check out the library website and get all the information. And Deputy Mayor, I don't have my bins, but I am so excited after dragging out 4 blue boxes and fighting with bees in open tins down a dirt driveway. So I can hardly wait.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other people with updates? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just so everyone is aware, we've been promoting this now for a little while. Pitching Day is slowly approaching. We at this point in time, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, between the 7th and the 17th, anybody who has come to Town Hall can pick up their kit. It has sanitizer, bags, gloves, numerous pairs, a safety sheet, as well as a few sweet treats that we've thrown in. On top of that, on the 11th, between 10 and 2, we are going to be in the roundabout. I will be there personally. We're going to be making sure that anybody who wants can just come up, social distance, grab a bag, put in the vehicle, and off they go. We're doing it a little differently this year. Normally what would happen is we'd have the local businesses support us with a barbecue. This year we're flipping the script a little bit. We are going to purchase gift cards for those that register officially, and we're having a draw, $50 draw for each person, each family, sorry, that wishes to try to make Innisfil better. This is something that's really, really positive when it happens on the 18th. We've been waiting a year and a half to do this. We've been planning and organizing and adapting and adjusting due to COVID. But now what we have is we actually have the event and we're doing it. And when this is the time when the businesses come together, the residents come together, the town staff works with everybody. It's just one solid day and we beautify Innisfil. And this is something I'm really, really excited about because this is something that we all need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else have association business from the town they've been dealing with? I'm going to go next and give a bit of an AMO update, and then I'm going to go to Jen Ray. I haven't forgotten you, Jen, to give an update from the Emergency Operations Center. So the AMO conference happened. It was the 16th to the 18th of August. Board members met on the Saturday and the Sunday pre the conference, and the conference was really well attended and very successful, although I'm desperate to get back and network with my colleagues. It was really well done, and many ministers, the premier, I think it was 23 ministers, 3 ministers forums. And personally, I had 6 ministerial delegations, 4 with the county and 2 with the town. And it was a very positive experience. And then my only other update is with the Police Services Board. We had a swearing in ceremony for 4 shiny new constables last week. And it was lovely to be there and see the excitement on their parents' faces virtually again. Okay, Ms. Ray, did you have an update from the One Town, One Team?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit has advised that there's been a significant rise in case counts week over week. Many of these cases were community acquired, and all but one was of the Delta variant. The majority of local case counts are occurring in people under the age of 60, and we're also seeing an increase in young people, including children under the age of 10. SMDHU advises that case numbers can be reduced through vaccinations, limiting social gatherings, and increased public health measures. Regarding vaccines, locally, we have surpassed 80% of the population 12 and older with their first dose and 70% with their second dose. SMDHU is working on their own internal vaccine policy, which will be shared with local organizations once completed. They also continue to work on a vaccine certificate or passport program. Dr. Gardner released a letter to local businesses strongly recommending the implementation of workplace vaccination policies in order to help maintain a safe work environment and reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission. The town is currently reviewing other municipal policies and is considering implementation. Dr. Gardner also issued a new letter of instruction for local businesses that supplements requirements under OREG 364/20, which came into effect on September 1st, 2021. Our economic development team sent this letter out to our local businesses to make sure that they were aware. And the last point about vaccinations is that SMDHU is hosting a pop-up vaccination clinic at Nantyre Shores on Friday, September 17th. It's open between 11 and 3 for students and then 4 to 7 for the rest of the community. Regarding the Reopening Ontario Act and orders under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, the province announced that proof of vaccination for entry into certain non-essential businesses and settings as of September 22nd this year. The town is currently awaiting the draft regulation in order to determine its application to town facilities, including arenas and other recreational facilities. The province is also working on a digital vaccine receipt or QR code, as well as an app to help businesses with the new system, along with tools for Indigenous persons, individuals from out of province, and those who may not have access to a computer or smartphone. Regarding the town's operations, Dr. Gardner continues to recommend that staff work remotely where possible. In accordance with his instructions, the town's EOC will continue monitoring the situation through the fall, but we do anticipate some form of return to work in the new year, which may include a return to in-person council meetings at that time. The town continues to reopen its facilities in line with provincial regulations and the recommendations of our public health partners. And finally, SMDHU is asking for all special events requiring a town permit to be submitted at least 30 days in advance of the event date. Event organizers are required to include a safety plan, which will be reviewed by SMDHU, by South Simcoe Police and town staff.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ray. And I want to say that while Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit is doing very well with the average of people vaccinated, Innisfil is still only at 68.9% of vaccination, people with both vaccines. That's third or fourth from the bottom in Simcoe County. So we need to step it up. And so encourage your neighbors and your friends and your loved ones to go to the clinic, the pop-up clinic at Nantyre on Friday. Thank you, Jen. So we'll now move into item 8, which is the consent agenda. We'll go through the list of items, and if the item is not pulled after we rise and back into council, we will do a bylaw to acknowledge all of the resolutions and adopt all of the resolutions that we didn't pull. So we will start with A1, the special council meeting minutes dated August 9th. A2, minutes from August the 11th. A3, council meeting minutes from August the 11th. A4, special council meeting minutes from August the 18th. B1, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee report. B2, the Heritage Advisory Committee report from August the 12th. B3, the Pitch-In Committee report from August the 12th. B4, the School Zone Traffic and Safety Advisory Committee from August the 19th. Okay, I've got two. Councillor Orsatti? You want to refer to committee?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, C1, the South Simcoe Police Service Building Operating Agreement. C2, the Innisfil Beach Park Ad Hoc Committee update. Councillor Orsatti? Refer to committee?
I didn't need to refer it. I just want to make a comment, but I'm seeing Councillor Waters. I'm not sure if he refer that, so.
Did you want to refer it, Councillor Waters?
Yes, I do. I have a question over the committee member who is stepping down and the numbers who are left over.
Sure. Okay, we'll refer that one to committee. Thank you. Then we have the 2022 council meeting schedule, item C3. C4, the federal statutory holiday, National Truth and Recognition, September the 30th. I just want to point out that we do have a special council meeting coming up, a workshop on truth and reconciliation. D1, the 2022 municipal election. Councillor Waters.
Just want to make a comment as opposed to pull it. I just want to see. I was glad to read that there are questions allowed on these ballots, and that I think that it would be nice to see that used more often. And to the very important things where we can get a good idea of what the community wants. So I just thought it was. I just wanted to make people aware that that is an opportunity for us. But they have to be very tight questions and ones which are really going to help move the community forward. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you, Councillor. Next is bylaws, E1, to appoint a new building inspector, Rafael Morante. And E2, a bylaw to ratify the Firefighters Association collective agreement. And seeing none, then there's no correspondence for action, and then correspondence for information. Is there any of those items that anyone wanted to pull of the 4 items? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, which is the consent list recommendation, and that would be 2 items that are being pulled, and that's moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Deputy Mayor Davidson. All those in favor? That is carried. And then a motion to resolve to committee of the whole. Moved by Councillor Payne, seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? And that's carried. So our first item was Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. And my seconder is Councillor Van Berkel. And I just wanted to, I don't actually have an amendment to this, but I wanted to speak on it because I think it's very important. And sitting on the committee, and this being in my ward and Councillor Van Berkel's ward abutting each other. And we hope that this, with the report, there was a petition that was brought forward in the last meeting in August. And I want to apologize to those who presented the petition because one of the members had reached out to me earlier. I expressed to them that I was having surgery and could they please wait till September. So I was remiss and disappointed myself that I was not there. And I wanted to speak on that item, which is 7.1. The request for a 4-way stop at St. John's and the 7th line. And that the petition, I believe, just looking at the report, because I didn't get to see, there's 300, 400 signatures. And oftentimes when we get these petitions, it's residents throughout all of the town. But I think all residents have a use of this road, St. John's, and they're impacted by it. And especially those residents that live along St. John's, live on the 7th line, whether they're trying to go east and west. I know that the Traffic Safety Committee, which Councillor Van Berkel, yourself, your worship, and myself that all sit on it, it can be frustrating. The staff hired a consulting firm to look at that intersection to come up with a solution, and the recommendation was not to put in a four-way stop or a set of lights. In the last meeting, I think it was also feedback from one of our South Simcoe police, who also gave feedback that they felt that this would be dangerous to put it in because of the bend in the road, and that would really have to be redesigned. To design that intersection of the road would probably mean expropriation. We're not doing it. I'm just saying that you'd have to have engineering, you'd have to redesign that road. I did receive, and I received many calls, believe me, even those threatening not to vote for me because I have not been able to get the stop sign, but we try our best and we do care. There's not a person on this council that does not care about the safety of our residents. And we try to look at every solution possible. I did have a resident who is a civil engineer who reached out to me today with some very good alternative solutions, which I will be discussing at the next traffic safety meeting, looking at alternatives that could be north or south on St. John's that could provide safety for children to get across the road, east and west, to get to a school without speeding traffic, to slow down the traffic and provide more visibility. So I look forward to sharing that information in the next traffic. But I just wanted to bring this forward because it's reached a boiling point with residents. They are frustrated and it is difficult for people living on St. John's. If you even try and walk in that area from Anna Maria to the 7th, you're taking it, very cautiously of thinking of your own safety. If you're trying to get across the road to get to a beach, which the residents are trying to at a road access point, even the link, it is all difficult for them. So I just wanted to share that we are looking at every possibility and alternatives that we can come up with for solutions to this. And there's going to be no one more happy than me if we can get a solution to put something in that can create the results that the residents want. And I, as you know, on council, everybody has been very lenient with me, constantly requesting a four-way stop in an intersection. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I know Deputy Mayor Davidson was looking at pulling this item as well.
Thank you, Councillor Arsati. First, I'll go to the seconder. Councillor Van Berkel, did you have anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was at the meeting and I spoke up. I said that sometimes, we should listen to residents, especially when there's 300 of them that signed a petition. They may know something we don't know, but it is a very difficult intersection. And I agree with what Councillor Sadi just said. People who need to cross the road there because of the sight lines are so poor that it's dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. And it is unfortunate that there is a beach area at the other end of the 7th, and that's where people go. So we really do need to look at that intersection. We really do need to do something about it. And I know that we've been working on it. We've been working on it very hard to improve the sight lines. And I'm sure to put the residents' minds at ease, something is going to happen. It's not spoken on and forgotten. We keep working at it and something will happen there.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know years ago we had a situation down here on Big Bay Point where there was didn't call for a stop sign. It didn't meet the MTO's safety or problem areas or whatever, but it was categorized. I think Councillor Van Berkel helped me with that in my first term as a traffic calming measure. Recently, I was reading something in the city of Barrie. Instead of putting stop signs, what they've done is an enhanced pedestrian crossing. So before you get to that intersection or that area, there's ample signs saying pedestrian crossing ahead, and it shows a kid walking, but the crossing itself was really exaggerated in size, which really stood out with white lines and such. And it's a new process they're doing in the city of Barrie. It's something new for them. So when I was reading about it, I thought maybe we could contact the city of Barrie and see what they're doing as Barrie is growing like we are. And there's new issues every day popping up. We could talk to them about this traffic calming measure they're using instead of a stop sign for now. And I think it might make the drivers more aware that, hey, they're approaching an area where kids are crossing, whether it be school or the beach. And just as a traffic calming measure, I think maybe we should reach out to them and take a look at it as an alternative for now. Thank you.
Director Bowman, did you have anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing in particular to add, only that I can appreciate and understand that this is an important topic to the public and members of council. And should we need to discuss this further at the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, we can certainly do that. We are always interested in speaking with our neighbors as well to share, in some of the successes they're having and see what we can apply here.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a mover and a seconder for the motion. We've had no amendments. So all those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? That's carried. So we'll now go to item C2, and that would be Councillor Waters.
If I can just get somebody to second, it would be nice just to. Donna, thank you very much, Councillor Rosati. In reading the report, it mentions that the committee had been on hiatus, and that's mostly due to COVID and that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping for next year that we have a more normal year and that the committee will be needed again, because as we find with all of our small parks, Innisfil's issues are much larger and gather a lot more attention. And I think that the committee is going to be busy. The one thing that did bother me in the report is that one of our members' residents is stepping down, and that will leave us with 8 members on the committee. And it's never good to have an even number of committee members. It's always nice to have non-number in case there's a vote or discussion on a particular issue. And the recommendation was not to seek a resident. Now, I know it's still a year and a bit before the next election, or maybe less than a year in terms of how effective we can be. But I thought for this upcoming year, it might be worthwhile still to have to select a resident. I can't imagine it being one of the reasons for not doing is cost. I can't imagine it being that expensive. They do such a valuable job. Like, I appreciate the input that they bring, the fact that they stand up for the discussion and truly represent what the residents are thinking. So I really appreciate our residents who sit on that committee, and I appreciate all residents who sit on various committees. But I just thought it would be a good idea to have somebody step into that position, because I'm hoping that next year is that we're going to be up and running back to normal, and those same old issues are going to be bothering us, and we could always use with their input. So that's my comment, and so I would like to open up for discussion and allow other councillors and members to have their say.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Deputy Clerk Toma.
Thank you, Your Worship, and for you too, Councillor Waters. That committee has been exceptional, and we've had such wonderful members who have participated and provided their input. It's not necessarily the cost of bringing on a new member, it's more the resources and bringing them up to speed. And currently, that committee is an ad hoc committee, so it does not have a set meeting schedule. So to recruit right now, recruitment usually takes anywhere from, on an average, probably 6 weeks from the time we put advertising out, we collect the resumes, bring them to council, and appoint a person. There's a 6-week gap there typically. Then bringing a person up to date, it's a lot of work for a member to get up to date, because usually we go over all of the minutes from previous meetings, reports. There's a lot of information that has to be reviewed to be able to participate fully in those meeting spaces. The other point I wanted to address there is that, yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. In most cases, having a uneven number is usually quite beneficial. At the committee level for advisories, I'm not so concerned because those meetings are typically a little bit more relaxed. There's conversation, and they're trying to come up with a solution that meets all of the needs. So it's typically where everyone is agreeable at the end of the discussion. It's not necessarily, you know, half of the members not in favor of something, other half, because they're providing advice to council. So having 8 members on that committee, it is a larger number, or it was 9 members initially. Many advisory committees operate with 5 members, 7 members. That's been my past experience. So 9 was a larger than normal number. Losing a member is always not a nice thing, but the member that had to step down had a increased workload, personal workload. And as there were no meetings scheduled at this time, felt that this would be the right thing to do. So that's the information I'd like to give you regarding that. And I leave that to council's decision.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Toma. Councillor Waters.
I agree that you know, the timeline is not good, but normally we don't get down into the serious discussions until the new year. So there is a ton of time for that search to begin and for that person to get up to speed, because in past experience, we're not, you know, having serious discussions until January. So there's now until January for that person to get up to speed. So it was a concern I had. If it's not a priority for council to have 9 members, I'm perfectly okay with that. I just thought that you know, we had the 9. It's always appreciated the input that they bring to the park, and a new perspective might be kind of nice to have a new voice on that committee. So that was my concern. So I will bow to council's wishes in terms of if they don't want to add that 9th person to the committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Waters. I'd be more inclined if, you know, we weren't going lame duck as of like June of next year, or I guess it's August of next year, but July the committees don't meet anyway. So really, we've got 6 months window, like you said, since getting started in January, but hopefully we can get started a little earlier than that. The members who are have been on since the beginning and who are quite keen, they're worth 9 people. I think 2 of them do 9 people's work. So just a very passionate group and very, very dedicated to the team and get stuff done that even we as council can't get done. So we wouldn't have had that pump track in the park if it wasn't for our ad hoc committee. So great work from them. And I look forward to working with them. Councillor Asadi.
Thank you. As the chair of that committee, I wanted to share with council that, you know, the committee has not been able to meet because the projects and the plans that we had, you can understand with the pandemic and changes at the gate and changes to the boat launching and staff, that we really couldn't offer a lot of things that we have that are planned for next year. The dog days this summer, the accessible beach chair project, and many others. And, you know, so we will be getting back together and doing a recap, you know, with Director Bowman on what happened at the park, what was impacted by the pandemic, and what changes does the committee need to look at in some recommendations. It's a committee that works well. We have an excellent vice chair and James Rancone, a very involved resident in the park. So I just want to share that although we haven't met, we have a lot of things on the back burner, and those burners are burning to get going. And we can hardly wait to do those big kickoffs next year, because I think we all need them.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? So we have a mover and a seconder with no amendment. We'll call the question. All in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. And next is our rise recommendation. Can I have a move? Carried. Now we'll move to consideration of adoption of the recommendations from Committee of the Whole. And that's moved by Councillor Arsati and seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any, there's no notices of motion that we were given notice of, so we'll go to announcements. Announcements by members of council, please. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Just two quick things, if I might. Just wanted to mention that my son Wyatt and I were really happy to attend the Innisfil Rotary Yard Sale last weekend. We were able to get a great deal on a belly pan for his snowmobile, so hopefully he won't have to test that out too soon with any snow or crashing and stuff, but really happy we were able to do that, and it's great to see that come back after a year. And I know that Councillor Fowler mentioned it. I have also registered for the pitch-in day on the 18th. And I'm hoping that Ward 7 can retain that golden broom for the 4th straight year, because I don't think it was awarded last year. So I think I could retain it for 3 years straight. And I think that works out to 5 of 7 years, if I remember correctly. So I look forward to getting my broom back again and put it back in my office when we're allowed back in the shop. So, and definitely looking forward to the Mayor's Tournament on Monday. Hopefully we have some good weather and we stay distant and have a nice morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other announcements for the good of the community? I have one that I'm sure is going to cause a lot of consternation, but as of Monday, Killarney Beach Road at the railroad tracks will be a full road closure for the installation of a water main at the Metrolinx. Metrolinx had originally, as I understand it, given approval to keep one lane open, but they've had some increased safety protocols recently, and now they're asking for a full closure. So that's going to be about a month long. So we'll be really leaning on communications to get stuff out, and asking all of council to please share that in your social media circles to make people well aware of it. And hopefully we'll rip that Band-Aid off as quick as possible and get that road opened up again. The Fresh Air Flicks is coming up again Friday night, but if it's raining on Friday, it'll be Saturday night. I think it's Lion King, I think. And also when you're pitching in on the 18th, you can, if you find any bottles, the Rotary Club is having their bottle drive on the same day, which I thought was kind of smart. And then finally, last Saturday, I attended a celebration of life for Troy Scott. It was very appropriate. They were golfing, which, I said, Troy's natural habitat was the golf course. And it was well attended, and he's so missed. And I had the opportunity to speak especially to his father, his brother, and his two girls. So we've bandied around some ideas about how to best honor his memory, and you'll hear more about that in the fairly near future. And also in typical Troy Scott fashion, all of the proceeds from the golf went to both the Rotary and the food bank. So that's all my announcements. And anyone else? Anyone from the staff have any announcements for the good of the community? Seeing none, then we'll move to the confirming bylaw. And that would be moved by Councillor Payne and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. And adjournment, and that would be moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everyone who is watching online. Very much appreciate it, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have a good evening, everyone.